Over the past month, we've seen a couple stories about executives at large companies who have used racial slurs and then faced a massive backlash. Right now, if you Google search Papa John's Pizza, you'll probably see numerous stories about their founder, Papa John, using a racial slur in a phone call with their marketing company. There's also the story of the Netflix executive who used the word in a meeting and was fired because of it. The only thing is, they didn't actually use a racial slur, because that would imply that they were targeting somebody of a certain demographic with a slur in an attempt to deride them. In both of these instances, the men were using the word in a way to describe why it was offensive or to actually complain about it being offensive. Yet for some reason, by simply describing the word, someone got offended, and these men have both lost their jobs. So what has happened in our society to make it so that you can't even describe the word? And how will it affect our economy, our jobs, and our country if people will lose their jobs for even complaining about racism? But before we get started, please head over to patreon.com/Timcast to become a patron and help support my work. This is my job. And if you want to see more videos like this, more interviews, and on-the-ground reporting, please consider becoming a patron to help support my work at whatever level you feel comfortable today. First, let's go back to when this all began just a couple days ago. This story from Forbes. Papa John's founder used N-word on conference call. You know, right away, that sounds pretty damning, but let's look at what actually happened. John Schnatter, the founder, chairman, and public face of pizza chain Papa John's, used the N-word on a conference call in May. Schnatter confirmed the incident in an emailed statement to Forbes on Wednesday. Schnatter was on a call with his marketing agency Laundry Service. On the May call, Schnatter was asked how he would distance himself from racist groups online. He responded by downplaying the significance of his NFL statement. Colonel Sanders called blacks N-word, Schnatter said, before complaining that Sanders never faced public backlash. Schnatter also reflected on his early life in Indiana, where he said people used to drag African Americans from trucks until they died. He apparently intended for the remarks to convey his antipathy to racism, but multiple individuals on the call found them to be offensive, a source familiar with the matter said. After learning about the incident, laundry service owner Casey Wasserman moved to terminate the company's contract with Papa John's. In an emailed statement on Wednesday afternoon, Schnatter confirmed the allegations. News reports attributing the use of inappropriate and hurtful language to me during a media training session regarding race are true. Regardless of the context, I apologize. Simply stated, racism has no place in our society. Following this, John Schnatter resigned from Papa John's Pizza, the company he founded. He was the chairman. And they even say in Forbes that he intended for these comments to convey his antipathy to racism. He was actually speaking out against racism and complaining about it. Yet, regardless, people on the phone call got offended, and that was enough for Laundry Service, the marketing company, to sever their contract with Papa John's, and then Papa John came out and apologized. Let me state this again. Papa John had to condemn racism because his earlier condemnation of racism was offensive. This is very confusing to me. If someone is on a phone call and is talking about why they don't like racism and you get offended, I can only assume it's because you are a racist and someone is offending you by criticizing racists. If John Schnatter's intention was to say racism is bad and to complain about how people have been racist in the past, I don't see how someone could be offended, and it actually is a dangerous precedent to set for our society if someone can actually lose their job for speaking out against racism. Let's check the latest update from Vox. Papa John's founder resigns as chairman after using a racial slur on call. The story starts by quoting Forbes, but then goes on to say, Papa John's said it had accepted Schnatter's resignation and will appoint a new chair. Schnatter, under mounting pressure including from Louisville chapter of the NAACP, also tendered his resignation Wednesday from the University of Louisville Board of Trustees. Aaron Ellis tweeted this, just announced by U of L. I am Papa John has resigned from the University of Louisville Board of Trustees, please see below. A statement from the University of Louisville Board of Trustees chairman about John Schnatter. After speaking with John, I'm confident that his comments, while inappropriate, do not reflect his personal beliefs or values. No member of the Board of Trustees condones racism or insensitive language regardless of the setting. The University of Louisville embraces and celebrates diversity and is a supporter of all its students and stakeholders regardless as to their identity. I need to stop right here because it has really gotten this insane. Not only has he resigned from Papa John's, he's also resigned from the University of Louisville. And they actually put out a statement saying that his comments do not reflect his actual beliefs and values. If that's the case, John Schnatter criticizing racists and racism not reflecting his beliefs would imply that he is a racist. We have gone to the point where everyone is going so crazy about perceived racist situations that even when someone tries to criticize racism, they must apologize for it. And now we have these weird backward statements that make no sense. I can't tell if they're mad at John Schnatter for criticizing racism or if somehow criticizing racism is racist. None of it makes sense. And it's actually come to a point where they are saying that what John Schnatter said doesn't reflect his values. But Forbes said he was conveying antipathy to racism. If that doesn't reflect his values, they're implying he is racist. From Vox, another city also responded. The mayor of Jeffersonville, Indiana, Schnatter's hometown, ordered his name removed from its local field house on Wednesday. Schnatter had donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate the aging facility last year. Once again from Aaron Ellis. City of Jeff Mayor Mike Moore, not him but a city worker, has removed the name of the I Am Papa John from the Natchez Fieldhouse in Jeffersonville, Indiana. This is from Wave 3 News photojournalist Miles Jackson. And then he posted this photo where you can see something has been removed from the fieldhouse. I think it's fair to say that the statements made by John Schnatter were probably insensitive. He said things that probably shocked some people, and he probably should have thought more about what he was going to say and how he was going to say it. But context matters, and intent does matter. He was not trying to be racist, he was trying to distance himself from racists, and he was complaining about other racists. If somebody wants to complain about racists and they say something stupid or insensitive, I think the appropriate response is to say, hey man, you probably shouldn't phrase it like that, alright? I get what you're trying to say. But when you actually punish someone who is trying to do good, who just stumbles and makes a mistake, you only make the problem worse. And the only conclusion I can draw is that when we look at the facts, you have a man who is actually trying to criticize racism, and people are saying that that statement doesn't reflect his values. The statement of criticizing racism, it's all very confusing. And he's not the only one. I mentioned earlier that we have the Netflix story. This story is even more ridiculous. From June 22nd, The Hollywood Reporter, Netflix fires PR chief after use of N-word in meeting. Exclusive. In the story, they published a memo from the CEO, Reed Hastings, and it says, I've made a decision to let go of Jonathan Friedland. Jonathan contributed greatly in many areas, but his descriptive use of the N-word on at least 2 occasions at work showed unacceptably low racial awareness and sensitivity and is not in line with our values as a company. The first incident was several months ago in a PR meeting about sensitive words. Several people afterwards told him how inappropriate and hurtful his use of the N-word was, and Jonathan apologized to those that had been in the meeting. We hoped this was an awful anomaly never to be repeated. 3 months later, he spoke to a meeting of our black employees at Netflix Group and did not bring it up, which was understood by many in the meeting to mean he didn't care and didn't accept accountability for his words. The second incident, which I only heard about this week, was a few days after the first incident. This time, Jonathan said the N-word again to 2 of our black employees in HR who were trying to help him deal with the original offense. The second incident confirmed a deep lack of understanding and convinced me to let Jonathan go. In a statement from Friedland, he says, leaders have to be beyond reproach in the example we set, and unfortunately, I fell short of that standard when I was insensitive in speaking to my team about words that offend in comedy. This is a story about a man who was talking about words that are offensive. He said the word and people got offended that he would even try to tell people the word was offensive. Is that not backwards and strange? And then he went to an HR meeting because people complained about it. And he once again described the word. In no way did he use the word against anybody. In no way was he intending to insult or deride anyone. But it doesn't matter. By simply describing the word and telling people it is offensive, that was offensive enough for him to be fired. And then they add that because he wouldn't talk about it 3 months later, it showed people that he didn't really care or accept accountability for describing a word. These are private companies that, for the most part, can do what they want. If Papa John is going to resign from Papa John's because he's causing problems for the company, then so be it. But what I think we're seeing here is not a reflection of these companies, but a reflection of our society that has grown so sensitive and scared that even when someone tries to criticize racism, albeit poorly, they are called racist. Even when someone tries to explain to people that this word is offensive, they are called racist. They are fired. What will this mean for the future if we can't actually describe the words that are offensive? George Carlin has a famous bit that I've brought up time and time again, where on stage in front of hundreds of people, he dropped dozens of racial slurs in an effort to explain that context matters. You don't need to be worried about someone saying a word. You need to be worried about the context and the racist person behind it who is trying to direct it at somebody else. He then called two comedians the N-word, and everyone cheered for it. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily right or wrong. George Carlin was attempting to make a point about context. It really does matter. In the context of Papa John's, he was trying to deride racism, not be racist, and that's a punishable offense right now. We're entering dangerous territory, where it's coming to the point where even criticizing racism is considered racist. At which point, what can you really do but say nothing at all? But what happens in a world where no one can say anything about racism? Then no one can argue against it. And those who don't care about losing their jobs and those who are overtly racist will have free reign to say whatever they want because no one in mainstream society will dare speak up out of fear of losing their jobs. But let me know what you think in the comments below and we'll keep the conversation going. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast. Stay tuned, new videos every day at 4 p.m. I'm gonna have more videos up on my second channel today at 6 p.m. I missed it yesterday because I was kind of sick. And also, the podcast and my interviews are probably going to move to the Subverse YouTube channel, which I will have a link for in the description below if you're so interested. But I'll also share those in the community tab of my main channel so you can still get access to them when they come out. Thank you all so much for watching. Stick around and I will see you tomorrow at 4.